Not convinced it ain't no acting or accident what the track emits. You strapped with gas that you ain't even practiced with. The fact is.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. So we got a couple of news and notes before we get into Raw from July 11th, 2022. First note, I was actually on a live stream. I was on Society Reviews movie review for Thor Love and Thunder. I think it was on Twitch. I'm not sure if it was on YouTube or not. So I'm not sure where you can find it, but it's there. So if you want to know my thoughts on the Thor movie, you can find it there. But if you can't find it, and if enough people can't find it, then I will upload a review of Thor Love and Thunder. I still have my notes around here somewhere. I think it was a good conversation. So also, now actual wrestling notes. Kevin Owens is apparently still injured and will be out for a little while longer. Hopefully, he's okay. But, they're being very hum on these injuries these days. They're not even talking about them now. They're just kind of pulling talent and not really telling people what's wrong with them. Along that same line, there's a heart monitor on Rhea Ripley now. So apparently she has like an irregular heartbeat or something like that. She posted a picture of herself wearing a heart monitor. And it's a very, very odd thing that all of these injuries and people's health irregularities are starting to pop up now. Look, I'm just saying, like, the summer injuries have gotten out of control. The summer injuries have gotten out of control. And it seems like every time, after every show, there's a bunch of injuries. But here's hopefully things go okay with Rhea Ripley. And cause she's a very young lady, far too young to be having heart problems. All right, let's finally get into Monday Night Raw. All right, so Brock Lesnar comes out there, and he's leaning into the country boy bit quite a bit, even adopting a country accent, even though I know that's probably how he talks anyway. But he's really like leaning into it now, where he sounds almost like a bumpkin sometimes. And he starts talking about Roman Reigns been living well since WrestleMania. And he said kings get fat and hogs get slaughtered, and that Roman is a hog. He kept calling him a tribal hog. And he said, speaking of hogs, Paul Heyman comes out there. Lesnar winks at Paul, which is ridiculous. Heyman said that this new rule, the last man standing match, plays into Brock's hands because Roman focuses on athletic competition, pinning his opponents and making them submit, while Brock has always been defined by annihilation and violence. So this is all within Brock's wheelhouse. He said Roman Reigns will defeat Brock Lesnar, even if it means that he has to teach Roman Reigns to stick his hands up Brock Lesnar's ass and rip his heart out. It will be the one streak Brock Lesnar will not conquer. So the Usos was floating around at this point. And Austin Theory also made an appearance. He reminded everybody of Brock Lesnar trying to murder him at Elimination Chamber, which is very interesting. Say he didn't forget. And then, of course, he's going to win the United States title and then cash in to become the undisputed champion. Then out of nowhere, here comes Otis and Gable. I'm like, what do they have to do with any of this? Nobody mentioned them. Nobody's talking about them. They just kind of showed up. And Otis confronts Brock Lesnar. And what was an interesting moment, because Brock is, smiling, and, Otis is, they keep calling him the tree trunk. The tree trunk Otis. I'm surprised he's not going to be introduced as the tree trunk Otis. I'm like, oh, God. But, Otis confronts Brock. Gable attacks Brock from behind with a chop block, which is probably the most ineffective chop block of all time. Brock then attempts to murder them both with stairs and his bare hands. Then he snatches up Otis in a display of true strength. He snatches up Otis. He stumbles not even a little, and then F5s Otis through a table. It was great. Then he collects his hat, he tips his hat to the audience, and walks out. And we don't see Brock Lesnar again for the rest of the night. interesting stuff here. They're just using Brock to pop a rating. He could easily have cut this on SmackDown, but they're definitely concerned about the Raw ratings now, I'm guessing. Look, it's fine, I guess Brock is, I don't know, is he more of a Raw wrestler than a SmackDown wrestler? And does that even matter anymore? I've seen a lot of that stuff floating around where people are saying like, hey, the brand extension is dead. And every time there's too many crossovers, people say the brand extension is dead. For instance, Theory has a match scheduled for SmackDown, which of course makes no sense because he's not a SmackDown wrestler. But the Usos being on Raw is what's bothering people. It's like, well, the Usos are literally the Raw tag team champions. They can be on Raw. But Theory being on SmackDown makes no sense. When Gunther was on Raw, that made no sense. I am still a big proponent of the brand extension, that the brand extension should exist, and that without it, we're not going to have as many stars because we were trying to focus all on the same people, on the same brand. But the idea that we're just going to have Brock Lesnar on Raw and Roman on SmackDown hyping the same match, okay. But we know eventually they're going to be on the same show because they're going to be in the same match, right? So it makes no sense. Also, Otis getting he went from vomiting one week to being F5 through a table the next. Can't be sure if they like him or if they hate him. And it's just like Madcap Moss, where he's being focused on this week, just like he was focused on last week, but he's not necessarily being focused on for a good reason, So it is what it is. All right, so our next segment. Finn Balor versus Rey Mysterio. And boy, this was interesting. So, before the match, Damian Priest decided to cut a promo where he said jumping the Mysterios backstage was justice. And that Dominic can learn from this. And that Rey has nothing more to teach Dominic. That it's time for Dominic to learn a new set of rules. This is very interesting because they also mentioned that Rey Mysterio will be celebrating his 20th anniversary in Madison Square Garden. Well, I was like, ooh, is that a house show? What is that? I didn't look it up. But it sounds like it's going to be a house show. It doesn't need to be. It should be on TV. Rey is one of the GOATs. We need to be able to see that. Finn Balor got the microphone, said that Rey might be a legend, but so is Edge. And look at what they did to Edge. And this felt like it was months ago for some reason. It felt like it was forever ago that they beat up Edge. Then he said that Edge was a bad leader and Rey was a bad father. He's not a bad father, a bad father. And I was like, well, how can you really be good at being a father? Because what the fuck is that? I know it's just an accent and all, but for Christ's sake, Finn. So they have the match, and it's a really good match between Rey Mysterio and Finn Balor. Finn Balor wins the match clean. We're keeping Finn strong. So, all right, I like this. Only problem I had with it is I think that we could have built up Rey Mysterio and Finn Balor a lot more. Two guys with a substantial amounts of history. Two guys who have never wrestled each other before this match. In a match that, a lot of people would have been willing to see, but you placed it right after Brock Lesnar and a bunch of promos. So unless people already knew this match was going to happen, you had to be watching the show already to know this match was going to happen. That's the benefit of advertising. Is when you advertise things, you learn what draws and what doesn't. And they continuously put, Rey in these big matches and Finn too, in these big matches that are not advertised. So it's like, oh, hey, you're happy to watch. Hey, this guy's going to be here. That's how you treat Shanky or, somebody like Ricochet or somebody like that. Somebody like Finn Balor who, we know advertising Finn Balor works because they've done it on NXT and you can bump a rating a little bit. We know that advertising Rey Mysterio is a great idea because WWE literally does it all the time and put him on the cover of the video game. So if advertising these guys works, it's one thing. I'm not talking about Madcap Moss here, who they actually did advertise last week. Weird. His match with Theory is actually being advertised. But Rey Mysterio versus Finn Balor is not an advertised match that we're going to build up and put a lot of time into. And not even the main event. for the record, which it could have been, but I'm cool with it being the first match. After the match, Finn Balor and Damian Priest sort of mock Dominic, showing that, they're winners. Their way works. And they're creating the temptation. Rey Mysterio losing had a benefit to it, as, they're telling Dominic there's nothing Rey can teach you. Rey's old and washed up, and the best way to prove that is to have Rey lose. And so Rey loses. So I'm interested in whether Dominic wants to join the Judgment Day or not. And all of this is seemingly an audible that they're calling because of the injuries. Edge has been gone. And I still think that these vignettes that they're showing with like the burning Cena hat and the burning Foley flannel, people think that this stuff is Bray Wyatt. No, it's still clearly Edge. All right. So it makes sense that this was probably just a small pocket feud before the Judgment Day goes on to feud with Edge. So I did see also articles that it's time to disband the Judgment Day. It's like, already? Like it's been like a month. People say WWE gives up on things quick. I know that they haven't done much with it, but you have to understand too, a lot of the situation, like things have changed since the initial turn. First they seemingly were going to galvanize around Rhea Ripley, but then Rhea Ripley had the heart thing and now she's gone. So now they have to take time to say, okay, well, how do we pivot from here? And they pivoted towards the Mysterios as sort of a holdover until the inevitable Edge return, which, seemingly is going to be coming soon. And I think that if you keep the pattern of the vignette where we're seeing different items from different opponents that the person within the vignette has faced before, then it's clearly Edge, because who else has wrestled Kurt Angle, the Hardys, Mick Foley, John Cena, and et cetera, throughout the years? Bray Wyatt has never wrestled Kurt Angle. And I know a lot of people want it to be Bray Wyatt, but I would love it if it was Bray Wyatt, but it wouldn't make any sense. Unless he was going to pop up and explain it, which, you could always do that. But I still think it's Edge. And I still think that eventually, once we get through with the Mysterios and Judgment Day, that's when we're going to get to Judgment Day versus Edge, and things will finally get back on track. Hopefully, Rhea Ripley will be back at that time. All right. So Becky Lynch comes out, and she's still doing, the rock star thing. She claims that she was devastated about not winning the Money in the Bank, but then said that winning the Money in the Bank and cashing in like Liv Morgan did was like winning the lottery. And she said she doesn't need to win the lottery because she knows how to bust her ass every week for a paycheck. And that she said she won the no holds barred match against Asuka, which should have made her the number one contender. As a matter of fact, she should have gotten an automatic rematch the day after WrestleMania when she lost the title. But since they're not going to do that, she's going to take matters into her own hands and demand a title match at SummerSlam. This was the prelude to the Raw Women's title match, Bianca Belair versus Carmella. Carmella wins the match by countout because Bianca Belair was arguing with Becky Lynch, got poked in the eye, and Carmella slid back into the ring to win the match. During this match is actually better, I think, than the Money in the Bank match. Which, it was not bad. I think most people just see it as skippable because they know Carmella's not going to win. But what made this match very interesting was the KOD counter that Carmella did. Not only the hooking her feet on the ropes, which I think was a really great counter, but also the countering the KOD into a face buster, which was awesome. That was, I gotta give the girl credit. Carmella came up with some pretty good spots here. And maybe she didn't come up with them, but she performed them very well. So Bianca Belair loses, but it was via countout, and it was because of Becky Lynch. So, of course, we're teasing a triple threat match again of Bianca, Carmella, and Becky. And Becky is the one who caused Bianca to lose. So we're kind of going back to the heat in that situation, that this never-ending Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch feud, which has been going on for over a year now, or almost a full year. So Billy Body, who is the wrestling journalist or wrestling reporter, or whatever you want to call him, I was going to do a video about that because there are some guys on the internet who don't feel like they should be called journalists. They should be called columnists or something like that. We'll talk about that some other time. But he did a segment on Conan and Disco's show where he sort of laid down the original idea for the Money in the Bank. So the story was, well, his version of events is that it is true that Ronda Rousey stepped in and wanted to drop the belt to Liv Morgan. And in order for that to happen, of course, Liv Morgan had to win the Money in the Bank. And that it was Ronda Rousey's decision to do that. And what ended up happening is Ronda used a little bit of her stroke to go in there and say Becky Lynch doesn't need to win the Money in the Bank because that she was the penciled in winner, according to this theory. And according to this story, Becky Lynch was going to hold the Money in the Bank, but also become the number one contender for the Raw Women's title. And that the plan was for her to be chasing not just one belt, but chasing the concept of her being Becky 2 belts again. But that she would, of course, fail. That she would lose to Bianca, try to cash in the Money in the Bank, and lose that too in the same night at SummerSlam. So she would lose both title matches in the same night and would completely destroy her character, which would lead to her ultimately building herself back up again at WrestleMania. Now, I like the idea. The idea actually is not too bad, but that is a complete and total shitting on the Money in the Bank. And it's kind of odd that we would go out of our way to, and I know they've done it before, where they've done like the Money in the Bank guy gets a title shot anyway, because they did it with Edge. Like they did it where Edge earned a Money in the Bank match, or earned a title shot while having the Money in the Bank. It was supposed to be a nice little teaser. They've also done it with other Money in the Bank winners where they've gotten title shots and then they try to get them 2 times in a row because they lose and then they try to cash in again and lose. They've had Money in the Bank winners lose before. The issue I have with this is that, while it made sense, considering you have to destroy Becky Lynch before you can, build her up again, she has lost more matches than she's won. And she doesn't really need to lose to both champions in the same night for us to get to that same point. She could lose to just one of the champions and just kind of fall apart. But we've also been doing this Becky Lynch falls apart thing for a little while now. So I'm kind of glad that they changed it and they decided to go with giving Liv the briefcase, even if having her cash in immediately probably wasn't the best idea. Now they're seemingly going to tease this triple threat match, which, to be quite honest, I don't know if I'm interested in that. I'm just not sure if I care enough about Bianca Belair versus Carmella versus Becky Lynch. I just don't think I care. All right, so next, Miz. He's out here with Champa. They're doing Miz TV. Miz is going to give Champa the opportunity to explain why he is consorting with the Miz. And Ciampa says that he wants the eyes of the world on him. And the one person in the WWE he knows how to get attention is the Miz. And the Miz is like, yes, I am. And he starts talking about the success of Miz and Mrs. Then he starts talking about how he took a social media icon in Logan Paul and turned him into a WWE superstar and gave him a big win at WrestleMania. And then Ciampa jumped in and said, yes, that's what I want. I want WrestleMania. I want SummerSlam. I want it all. And it's just like, you stick with me, kid, and you'll get it. They did a Logan Paul insert where he reiterated that he wants to fight The Miz. And then Miz again says that he doesn't believe that Logan Paul really wants to fight him and that he really wants to be a tag team champion with Logan Paul. But if he's going to give him one more time, a little bit more time to rescind this statement, or he's going to have to look for a partnership elsewhere. And of course, the camera pans over to Ciampa, who does his little wave. And I like Ciampa and Miz. All right, I like this. Ciampa's intense. He's smaller than Miz, which is odd, but he looks phenomenal. Just look at him. You know, he comes in, he looks professional, he looks like a tough guy, looks like a cage fighter, and his motivations of I'm trying to get attention. That's why I'm attacking guys from behind. That's why I'm partnering up with the Miz. I'm trying to stand out. I want to be seen. I can feel that, because that is a big problem with somebody like Ciampa. He kind of would be getting overlooked because he's not a big guy. That partnering him up with somebody who is a lightning rod like the Miz could actually benefit him quite a bit. So I like the pairing. And if Ciampa's going to be in Miz's corner for the SummerSlam match, that could be a pretty good payday for the guy. And similar to, Damian Priest being involved with Bad Bunny, it could be a sign that they're actually planning on doing something with him. Or even if he doesn't do anything else, he was still involved with this angle that still might be pretty fun. Similar to a Bam Bam Bigelow run, where, Bam Bam Bigelow never got the opportunity to be, who he should have been in the WWF, but he always had that match with Lawrence Taylor, which was a WrestleMania main event. We always remember he was involved with that. And so maybe if Damian Priest and Tommaso Ciampa don't go anywhere, and maybe they flounder on the main roster, they still have got these moments where they were involved with high-profile celebrities. And it shows that the company trusted them at least a little bit in that regard. All right, so AJ Styles comes out there. He says that, for the last several weeks, he's been getting attacked from behind by both of these guys. Then he says that makes you, and then the Miz thinks he's going to talk about his balls again. I don't know why the Miz's balls is a thing. And then AJ Styles says, I was going to call you cowards. And then he says, cowards with tiny balls. So now the Miz wants to beat up AJ Styles. This is supposed to be a handicap match anyway. Then Ezekiel comes out there and says that Elias said that Styles is phenomenal. And Elias also talked about Miz's tiny balls. And I was like, oh God, we're still talking about his fucking balls. They got a t-shirt now talking about Miz's balls. Like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we doing this? It's so stupid. It's so dumb. Dumb. Anyway, Ezekiel says that he went to Adam Pearce and told him to zeke up this match. And this match would get totally zeked up if he was involved with it to make it a tag team match. Ezekiel and AJ Styles versus Miz and Tommaso Ciampa. Of course, AJ Styles accepts the match. And then we have the match that Ezekiel and AJ Styles win by disqualification, as Ciampa is protecting the Miz and beats the tar out of AJ Styles and refuses to acknowledge the referee and gets disqualified. So after the match, Tommaso Ciampa gets hit with a phenomenal forearm and got left stanking on the right outside the ring, and the Miz flees and runs away, kind of leaves them behind. So, okay, we're going to have Ciampa be the Miz's heavy. And since, he's smaller than the Miz, but he looks, far more dangerous than the Miz. So I'm okay with it. Because Tommaso Ciampa just has such, and I hope he doesn't, if he wouldn't hear this, but he has Benoit vibes to me, where he's small, but his style is physical. And I see people really connecting with him because he does have charisma. He has far more charisma than Chris Benoit did. But, so I'm very interested in how we are going to portray him, going forward. Is he just going to be the Miz's fall guy where, stuff like this is happening? He's going to get knocked out and the Miz can run, or is it eventually he's going to be the guy pulling Miz's fat out of the fire, which, also seems to be a pretty good usage of him. And either or, I think it's a good start for Ciampa. He's a guy, I think he's already 37 or 38 or something like that. So we're not sure how much longer we got with this guy. And he had a serious neck injury. So I'm really rooting for him. I'm rooting for all of the former NXT Black and Gold guys who are still around, man. I'm not holding the torch for him anymore. Like, hey, maybe Damian Priest could be world champion. I'm not on that tip anymore. And I'm under no uncertain belief that Tommaso Ciampa is going to be world champion. At least not right now, from what I see. So, but I'm still saying that, hey, they could be solid United States champions. They could be solid tag team champions. They could be guys on the roster that matter, and who matches matter. That's why I focus so much on whether they were advertised earlier. Because sure, you want to get rid of some of the guys who've been around for a while and haven't been doing much of anything, like Cesaro and Matt Cardona and those kinds of guys. And you do need fresh guys on the roster that are a little bit more experienced. But you can tell they were actually interested in pushing somebody like Theory and even somebody like Riddle because of the way that they, pushed them almost right out of the gate. While other people like Damian Priest and Tommaso Ciampa, they kind of have to do the celebrity thing first. They have to kind of prove themselves. So, it is what it is. So, speaking of Riddle is next. And Riddle shows up and he's tag teaming with Lashley tonight. And Riddle starts to talk to the United States title because he's a former United States champion, so they don't want you to forget that. And he's talking to the belt and said that the belt looks happy or something silly like this. Then he wants to get his hands on Seth Rollins and give Seth Rollins another RKO. Lashley's talking about how he wants to punish Theory. Then Riddle says, hey, how about after the show, we watch Stranger Things. It was ridiculous, of course, because Riddle is like white R-Truth now. So he's dude bro R-Truth. Like, he's just delusional. He's like, I would say Thor in the new movie, but I don't want to spoil things too much for you. Anyway, Lashley has already seen Stranger Things, so he's not interested in hanging out with Riddle after this. But Riddle got his comedy in. All right, so that leads us to the main event. Riddle and Lashley versus Austin Theory and Seth Rollins. I'm sorry, Theory and Seth Rollins. Speaking of Seth Rollins was upset at Riddle, wanting to know who the hell Riddle thinks he is, attacking him like he did the previous week. And he said he's not sure if Riddle is an idiot savant who is this fighting master, otherwise moron, or if he's an idiot that Randy Orton felt sorry for, but he's not going to let Riddle clout chase on him. Then Theory walked up to Seth Rollins and said to him, hey, you had the most successful Money in the Bank cash-in of all time. I want to be that too. How did you make it happen? Do you have some advice for me? And Seth Rollins, of course, takes Theory under his wing to advise him on how to become a greater Money in the Bank winner. A nice little bonding moment for the temporary tag team partners. So in the middle of this tag team match, again, Bobby Lashley and Riddle versus Theory and Seth Rollins, Dolph Ziggler comes out in the middle of the match. Dolph Ziggler. And I think everybody collectively was just like, what is Dolph Ziggler doing here? Why is he here? Right? Why is he here? What do you want? So he doesn't want anything. He just wants to sit and watch. So he was sitting ringside. Riddle was being pinned by Austin Theory. And Theory's feet was on the ropes. Dolph Ziggler pushes his feet off the ropes. And Theory turned around and was like, what are you doing? What? While his back was turned, he catches an RKO, gets pinned. So Money in the Bank winner loses again, which is probably what is his second loss since he won the briefcase. He's got a lot more to go. Lashley has speared Seth Rollins through the barricade, so they weren't around. So after the match, Riddle is, excited. He's celebrating with Lashley. Theory is pissed. And then he gets super kicked in the face by Dolph Ziggler, turning Dolph Ziggler babyface and laying Theory out. Had Dolph Ziggler standing over Theory at the end of this match and at the end of the show, actually. And so it's the closing shot, and we're not sure why this is occurring. So Raw is essentially, I guess, on their version of a cliffhanger, where everybody now is supposed to want to ask themselves the question, why is Dolph Ziggler involved? Well, the question hinges on a very simple premise that you have to care about Dolph Ziggler. And some people don't. But I did see a podcast tweet out that Dolph Ziggler is probably WWE's greatest six-man ever. because they are willing to put him anywhere. You know, he could be in a world title match if they need it. He could have a run in NXT. He could be a tag team champion. He could also be an in-ring coach. He could do a little of everything. So it's likely that they're going to put him in a feud with Theory in order for him to sort of mold Theory further in the ring. And that could be perfectly fine, but there has to be a storyline reason for this. And I don't know what that could possibly be. The last time we saw Dolph Ziggler, he was doing Dirty Dogs with Robert Roode. So, like, we would be talking about maybe taking up some kind of new Dolph Ziggler, which I guess we're all about. We're all for it, you know. But a lot of this hinges on whether you care about Dolph Ziggler or not. And they have done, not the strongest of jobs of making Dolph Ziggler a legit threat. Like, I don't think anybody believes that Austin Theory is going to lose to Dolph Ziggler. They just did a thing where Finn Balor did like 14 straight jobs to Theory in order to legitimize him. They're not going to delegitimize him by having Ziggler just beat him clean in the middle of the ring, are they? Probably not. Hopefully not. So we're looking at a situation here where I'm interested because I like Dolph Ziggler. I think that the NXT run rejuvenated him a little bit. I would have liked for him to come out in a different, like looking different. Like, yes, he was wearing a suit, but I would have liked for him to come back with a haircut. Maybe like that time when he came back with a different hair color. You remember when Dolph Ziggler came back and he had black hair? It didn't last long, but like that would have been a striking sort of change that, told us that something different is going on with Dolph. If he came back with a beard, or something like that. But him just coming back looking like Dolph Ziggler and being Dolph Ziggler is going to it's going to spark a little bit of interest because it's kind of chaotic that he just came out there and just decided he was going to be a babyface today. But you have to actually care about Dolph in order for this to work out in the long term. And I'm not entirely sure enough people do. All right. So Alexa Bliss and Asuka defeated Doudrop and Nikki Ash. The storyline in this match, and the storyline I'm guessing of Alexa Bliss's new return, is whether she lost her killer instinct in therapy. She still won this match because Nikki Ash is a jobber. So she didn't lose her... she didn't lose it that much that she was able to get beat by Nikki Ash. Nobody cares about her. Asuka and Alexa Bliss as a tag team. Oh boy, I don't know if I'm feeling that. I don't know. They have to do a better job of building this team up and finding something that they have in common, rather than. But Asuka was sort of making fun of Nikki and Doudrop, and. You know what? I'm interested in the story of Alexa Bliss having lost something in the whole therapy session. I'm more interested in that than I am in the concept of Alexa and Asuka as a tag team. I don't care about that. I don't think anybody else cares either. I don't think they have anything in common. To me, it seemed like it was a natural to put Alexa Bliss and Liv Morgan together. But apparently other people got involved and Liv Morgan ended up getting pushed as a solo star, which, for better or worse, is at least an attempt to do something different. But I think that seemingly left Alexa Bliss in the lurch. So now what are we going to do with her? It's like, okay, well, we have nothing to do with Asuka either. We're just going to team them up. That sucks. It sucks. We need a new Asuka. We need something different to happen with Asuka. Maybe Alexa Bliss is going to use like her devil powers or some shit to turn Asuka into somebody else. Like maybe she's going to use her witchery to do something different with Asuka. I don't know. But a lot of people are still talking about the women's tag team championships not being utilized and there being no plans for them. And I say, look, when you have the champions throw the belts in the trash or throw them on the desk and they don't care about them, and then the audience hasn't seemed to really been looking for them outside of the people who are emotionally attached to the whole Sasha Banks Naomi fiasco. Most other people aren't really clamoring for a tag team championship, or they can just take their time because the belts are vacant, so they can take their time. They don't have to rush, do a tournament. It's not immediate. But it just seems weird that we're going to put Alexa Bliss and Asuka together. especially if they are going to reestablish those tag team championships. Why the hell would Alexa Bliss and Asuka be the team? I wouldn't be interested in that if I was Alexa Bliss or Asuka. But I guess if it's better than nothing. There are still two people who are on the roster and constantly being utilized. All right, so Doudrop and Nikki, I would have thought that they would have maybe not broken up, but they were their storyline for weeks, and it was a long time ago, was that Nikki doesn't take this serious enough, and she had to stop playing around. And I was guessing that was going to be near the end of her superhero gimmick. And it's still there. They continue in the superhero gimmick, despite the fact that it's an utter tremendous failure. And it actually does a really good job of highlighting what Becky Lynch said earlier. It's just like certain psychology to winning the lottery. People getting things that they didn't earn. Is that they find it impossible to keep it. And I like that analogy. Nikki Ash is a great example of that. Like she only became Raw Women's Champion because of the Money in the Bank. And the Money in the Bank is like hitting the lottery. You will win the title, absolutely. Just like you hit the lottery, you become a multimillionaire. But if you didn't work to get there, do you really know the work to keep it? Do you really know the work to maintain that lifestyle? And when you learn that a lot of people who win the lottery end up going broke shortly thereafter because they don't know how to manage money. They didn't make money in any legitimate way. They made, money by chance. And that should also teach people that it's not about the money, it's about money management. And when I heard Becky Lynch say that, I was like, it's not just a good line. It's also good for storylines that WWE could use that in terms of people who have never achieved anything outside of winning the title via Money in the Bank have a difficult time maintaining the championship because they only won it via Money in the Bank. So it's creating this almost lottery style win-loss thing where, you become the champion, but you're not really a champion. Just like, you won the lottery, so you're technically a multimillionaire, but you don't know anything about paying taxes. You don't know anything about, paying car notes and how high your insurance goes when you buy certain cars. And all the economics of being a multimillionaire is lost on you. And so it's the same thing in terms of being a champion, is that the mechanics and technicalities of being a champion is lost on you because you've never won the title in a legitimate sense. It was basically you swipe the belt. And I like that. I like it. It's a very interesting dynamic that they could create for various wrestlers where you can give a guy a title, and it does devalue the belt a little bit, but it also puts things in context, which is, I think, a favorite in WWE, which when you look back on a guy like Jinder Mahal being a world champion, he didn't win the Money in the Bank. It probably would have been better if he had, because then this thing would have made a lot more sense. Because they're like, well, how could Jinder Mahal ever become world champion? I was like, well, he was the Money in the Bank winner. Then people would be like, oh, okay, well, just like how could, Tyrone with, 2 teeth in the front of his head, how could he be a multimillionaire? Well, he won the lottery. It happens. So I'm okay with that analogy, and seeing Nikki Ash fall off the face of the earth, it makes that analogy make a lot more sense. But of course, it would behoove you to give the Money in the Bank to more established names or to people that you actually care about and want to make people to take seriously. But it's a microwave, essentially. It's a gimmick, What's the easiest way for us to get somebody over? Money in the Bank, That's kind of how they use it, and it's no surprise that it doesn't work. And it's no surprise, of course, that it didn't work with Nikki because she wasn't over when they gave it to her. So it's, again, different from Liv. All right, so I can finally move on now. The Usos and Amos versus Street Profits and R-Truth. Very interesting thing here. So the Usos are there talking about the Street Profits crying and whining. The Street Profits come out there and say they're taking the championships. Then R-Truth appears. The tag team title match at SummerSlam is going to have a special guest referee. So R-Truth comes out there and tells everybody to calm down. Then starts talking about how he's a certified tag team counselor on top of being a certified priest, certified marriage counselor, etc. And he says he wants to counsel these two teams. And the Usos are pissed. They're like, you need to get your ass out of here. You know, you need to beat it. He also says that he's a certified referee. And now the Usos are really mad. He said, look, take that referee, Jimmy Uso, take that referee's shirt off and get your clown ass out of here. Truth actually gets mad, which is a new wrinkle for Truth. I don't know when the last time R-Truth actually been angry. Like, he usually, stuff rolls off of his shoulders. Now he's actually getting mad. He said, so I'm a clown ass. I'm clown ass, y'all. He said, you want to fight this clown ass? And the Usos are looking like, what? So Truth is trying to get the referee shirt off. The Street Profits help him take this shirt off. And then he's like, I'm going to fight the Usos. And Usos like, okay, whatever, let's do it. And then he's like, with my partners. And of course he backs into with the Street Profits. And it looks like it's going to be 3-on-2. And then Omos and MVP comes out there. Very random. Just very, very odd match. And it doesn't make sense that Omos would even want to be involved with this. But MVP says that Omos should be the referee for their tag team title match. Like, can you imagine that? Also, he says that, but it might be better for Omos to offer his hands to the Usos. For reasons unknown. Who knows? So the Usos and Omos defeat the Street Profits and R-Truth. R-Truth was hilarious here, as usual. He was auditioning as the referee, doing his counts, doing the count out. My favorite, of course, is when he called San Antonio the city of brotherly love when it's not. He has great comedic timing, considering I can't tell a joke without laughing. R-Truth can tell all the jokes without laughing. He'll smile, but he won't laugh. Like, I'll be laughing at my own. I wouldn't be able to get through it. But he probably does like rehearsals and shit. But the crowd seemingly loves the idea of R-Truth being the special guest referee. It likely won't be R-Truth, because why would it be? But I actually liked R-Truth and the Street Profits as a tandem. Like, that's a cool unit right there. Where R-Truth is basically like the mascot of Monday Night Raw. People like seeing him. People want him there. He gets reactions. He gets people into whatever it is he's doing. I think he was a nice tease for the special guest referee, but I would not go with him being a special guest referee. I just don't see how that would benefit the match, because he would actually probably overtake the match. So, but it was a fun little segment. It was just kind of a throwaway, though. Like, we've seen the Street Profits wrestle the Usos in pretty much every way imaginable. They had actually advertised for it to be Jimmy Uso versus Angelo Dawkins. And I was like, why do we need to see that? I preferred this to what was advertised. So I'm not going to complain about that. Speaking of Angelo Dawkins, they have really been pushing, especially online, this concept of the Street Profits being broken up. And people are like, man, what is Angelo Dawkins going to do? And it's starting to wear on them. It's starting really to wear on them that people have already crowned Tez as being the star of the team. And to, Montez Ford's credit and WWE's credit, they have been trying to give Angelo Dawkins more to showcase him. And Dawkins has been doing more. Like, a lot of the stuff that, Tez can do, Dawkins has been trying to do it. That's why he started like jumping over the top rope. He would never used to do that shit before. Now he's trying to do it. He's trying to, but Montez Ford just has such tremendous charisma and tremendous character that he's unstoppable. It's inevitable that he's going to Jannetty Angelo Dawkins, no matter how hard they fight it. But he did say that it was starting to get to him. You know, I don't know. This is not really a storyline that they've been running on TV, at least not yet. So I don't know how much longer they plan to do this, but at least it's something that's been floating out there for a little while now. Hopefully they don't break up the Street Profits anytime soon. I'm actually thinking that the Street Profits might actually win the tag team championships. It might actually be better if they did, because what do they do if they don't? You know, then you're talking about you're pretty much guaranteeing they're going to break up if you don't win the tag team titles, because then they have nowhere to go. You know, they're going to go back to doing Snickers commercials and DoorDash commercials and shit like that. I mean, yeah, but you know, can't Tez do those by himself? But also, why would you push Tez by himself when you're trying to establish somebody else in theory, you know, or you're trying to establish someone else in a top spot? You kind of want to wait. You should wait until there's a top babyface spot open, and it should be a babyface spot, not a heel spot, that Montez Ford gets. And maybe after Lashley drops the U.S. title to somebody, and we have Montez Ford kind of slip into that United States title division, and you could do that without breaking up the Street Profits. But WWE doesn't believe in that kind of shit. So if if they're going to do anything solo with Montez Ford, it's probably going to break up the Street Profits. But what do you guys think about Raw? You know, it was a mediocre show as usual. Brock Lesnar coming out there to beat up guys. That's kind of his gimmick. You know, Brock doing Brock things. You know, it never gets boring, because we watch wrestling to watch guys get beat up. You know, it would be nice if other people was allowed to beat people up so handily. But, you know, Brock doing Brock things. But let me know what you guys think. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.